On my daily radio show, we do a little segment occasionally called the Twit of the Week. It goes something like this.
Drive at 5.
Thriller.
Sweetly down, sweetly down. Looky, 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 look at that sugar pie. Humpy, hump, 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 sweetly down.
Our Twit of the Week is the one, the only, one of the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse, Rashida Tlaib. And she has earned the title Twit of the Week because, well, just when you thought that her limited capacity brain trust could only handle things like this.
People love you, and you win. Woo! And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach them.
She comes out with this classic.
And people cannot live on those kinds of wages. And we can't allow people to be living off of tipped, relying on tipped wages. It's just not, or whatever they call it, tipped income, because it's just not enough to support our families. But I also want to always tell a story, because big fights like this one, $15. By the way, when we started it, it should have been $15. Now I think it should be $20. Picture America Rising here. It should be $20. No, it should be $20 an hour.
Now, I know that I should actually give this thoughtful, careful analysis explaining why a $20 an hour minimum wage mandated by the federal government won't work. But, you know, we've been splaining and splaining and teaching and splaining and teaching, and yet, with each passing day, the libloons, the libtards, the Democrats, the radicals on the left, they just seem to be getting dumber. So really, when she comes out with something like this, something this insanely stupid, this derangedly psychotic, it must be responded to in kind.
I'm thinking, like, instead of a minimum wage being like, like whatever it is right now, I'm thinking that minimum wage should be like $20 or $30 an hour.
Damn, girl, $20 an hour? I can finally move us out of my mama's house.
We can't live like this, you know? We can't live like this because, you know, people are trying to live, you know? And unless you're making $20 or $30 an hour, you know, you're not living.
$20 an hour? I could totally get my hair and nails done every single day.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just like up here and there's like a lot of noise and I don't really understand exactly, you know, about economics and stuff like that, you know, but I know that I moved to strike that we all need to make $20 or $30 an hour, and that needs to be minimum wage.
About time y'all recognize us people here at McDonald's. We people too.
From now on, you know, if you work at a job, you're going to be making minimum wage at $20 or $30.
We here at McDonald's, we work harder than any policeman and firefighter out there, you know what I'm saying? We flipping burgers, y'all. We deserve $20, $30 an hour, you feel?
From now on, you know, if you work at a job, you're going to be making minimum wage at $20 or $30. So that's what I'm going to be working on.
Our thanks to the United Spot for putting that together. That's just classic. That is absolutely hilarious. All right. Rashida Tlaib, you know, the Islamic radical representative from the state of Michigan, who right from day one, after taking her oath of office on the Koran, decided that the mother effer in the White House had to go. Okay. Well, now she's out there, you know, like, proposing, like, you know, like maybe, you know, $20 minimum hour wage. She does understand, right, that the economy is basically doing really well on every level across every sector. And because the economy is doing what... Wait, I thought I heard someone in the audience say, but wait, Glenn Beck says it's not. Okay. Let me break from Rashida Tlaib for just a moment to deal with Glenn Crybaby Beck. First of all, Glenn Beck is no friend to the conservative movement, none whatsoever. Why some of you still listen to him, why some of you have wasted your money on Blaze TV. I won't even tell you what Blaze TV sounds like it's a channel for, but over there at Blaze TV, you know, neurotic, psychotic Glenn Beck, who is the level of dishonesty and disloyalty from this guy is unbelievable. We're talking about a guy who smashed his face into a bowl of Cheetos and making fun of the skin tone of President Donald Trump. He went on the Samantha Bee show and talked about that he was the Charlie Brown wanting to kick the football, but she was the Lucy who was going to pull it away, and he didn't know if he could really trust her, but he wanted to because liberals and really insightful conservatives like him had to join together to get rid of Donald Trump, or it would be the end of the country. Talk about that Glenn Beck? The Glenn Beck who went on CNN and told Anderson Cooper that without a doubt, both he and Jake Tapper were singly the most honest men in media. These were men of upright integrity. The same Glenn Beck that for whatever reason, Tucker Carlson had a major brain fart, and on the inaugural broadcast of Tucker Carlson, he had Glenn Beck on as one of his very first guests. How about that Glenn Beck? The Glenn Beck that took food trucks down to the border to give the illegal kids coming in food and soccer balls. We talk about that Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck who went out not only campaigning for Ted Cruz, but basically told all of America, especially the evangelical Christians, that God had told Glenn Beck that God had handpicked and wanted Ted Cruz to be the president. That Glenn Beck? Yes, we know that Glenn Beck keeps trashing things regarding the economy and things Trump, even though now he put on his MAGA hat and says he's a Trump supporter because, after all, he has done some conservative things. The Glenn Beck who day after day chides this president about the trade war with China, which we're winning now, by the way, who says that at any moment our economy is going to collapse, and here it comes. You got to buy his end of the tribulation survival food packs and invest in gold. And it just happens to be a gold company that he himself is heavily invested in and advertises on his radio show and The Blaze, which he is no doubt deriving income and kickback from, getting you to put all of your money in that. You would trust Glenn Beck with your money? I wouldn't trust Glenn Beck with the weather report, let alone anything that he has to say on political commentary, and certainly not going to trust him with my money. So ignore Glenn Crybaby Beck, the fake, fraudulent, conservative media voice. He is as conservative as Ann Coulter is, and Ann in heat bipolar Coulter is not to be trusted. It is a gig for her. She plays conservative shtick because it sells books and she earns a paycheck, and she hasn't got enough talent to actually make it in real Hollywood, so she plays to the conservative crowd as a parody version of conservatism, and sadly, a lot of conservatives haven't woken up to her either. It's kind of like in the late 50s into the transition to the early 60s. You know why we got the British invasion? You know why we got all these British rock bands coming over here and taking over and dominating American-created rock and roll? Because after Elvis went into the army and Jerry Lee Lewis got in trouble for marrying his 13-year-old cousin, and Little Richard couldn't make up his mind if he was, going to be a preacher or a rock and roller, and all of the controversy that was swirling, but it all centered around the fact that Alan Freed had introduced black rhythm and blues to white teenage audiences. Therefore, rock and roll had to go. And then the record companies got nervous, so they gave us a homogenized rock and roll. Fabian and Paul Anka, the Teen Idols, and then all the girl groups. So that by the early 60s, rock and roll was virtually dead. It took the Beatles and the Rolling Stones coming over here, and what were they singing? Chuck Berry stuff? Covers of rockabilly by guys like Carl Perkins? That was the rebirth of rock and roll. So we have in so-called conservative media, just like we had at one time the fake rock and rollers, we've got the fake conservative media. Glenn Beck, Ann Heat Coulter, and nasally, whiny voiced little wimpy Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro. That all said, you come to channels like this to get the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. This economy is rocking and rolling on every level thanks to President Trump. And you know what that does within the private sector? Without any help whatsoever from the federal government or requiring a federal mandate, wages just magically go up. My wife works as a nursing director at a facility, and of course she is in charge of hiring nurses. She also from time to time has to hire nurses' aides. And a few months ago she complained to me that the quality of the candidates coming through the doors were not great and couldn't understand why they couldn't attract quality people. And I said, well, what are you paying? And she basically told me what they were paying, and I just sort of laughed. So take a ride with me. And I drove her to a little quick grab mart here in the area. You know, this place sells beer and cigarettes, lottery tickets. And on the sign out front, now hiring, they were offering $13.50 an hour. $13.50 an hour to basically do nothing but sit on a stool at the counter, and you can be on Facebook or your iPhone in between customers, because all you're doing is sitting there and cashing out people that are buying pack of cigarettes, 12-pack of beer, lottery tickets, milk, whatever. $13.50 an hour. It was $3.50 an hour more than where she was offering to pay someone to come in and be a nurse's aide, which is a physically demanding job. I also shared with her that there were fast food places in town that were now offering $14 an hour. I said, your corporate structure is going to have to keep up with where the economy is. And that's what's happening right now. People are getting $15, $16, $18 an hour jobs, even on just a high school diploma or even high school dropouts. That's where the economy is right now. The better jobs, the better wages are going to people with more experience, better education. But wages are going up, and up on every sector, across every level, across every demographic. And they did it without the help of Congress. But what Rashida Tlaib is proposing, and here's where we have to get serious for a moment, we have to do a little explaining, a little teaching. There are certain jobs which are what we call entry level. And I know, for those of you that are part of my audience on a regular basis, you've heard this 100 times. You are informed. You don't just listen to me. You go to alternative conservative media. You know the drill. You know where this is going. You know what I'm about to say. I'm not about to reinvent the wheel here. But I'm about to teach you some basic economic principles which drive our economy and create jobs. There are certain entry-level positions. Those are the jobs that 16-year-old kids get to work after school and summer vacations, and college kids get, and, you know, somebody that looking for part-time income. They don't need to work full-time. Or a retired person that's looking just, you know, they're retired. They're not one that they're going to live up north in the summer and travel down south and live there all winter. They want something to do. My mother retired from a very good job. She was a director of housekeeping for a major hospital in New York and had worked that job for many years, retired, and found that she didn't like all that extra free time on her hands, so she got a job at a local McDonald's, worked right up into her mid to late 70s, and she liked to work the breakfast shift. A lot of young people don't like that shift. She would work the breakfast shift. She liked serving coffee to people and talking about their day, and that was kind of her thing, and she did that 2 or 3 hours every morning. And she was, you know, basically home by late to mid-morning, and That was just something she enjoyed doing. Didn't need the money, wanted to do it. Kept her active, kept her engaged. If McDonald's is going to start having to pay because of Rashida Tlaib, I'll get that name right yet, $20 an hour, well, no more after school kids, no more part-timers. No, they kill jobs. I mean, do some basic research into this. Are there some people that would immediately get raises? Yeah. But they don't talk about the tens of millions that lose jobs and get laid off. It was like when they mandated Obamacare. Why, as soon as everybody's working 25 hours a week, we consider that full-time. That employer has got to provide health insurance. What did employers start doing? Cutting everybody's hours. You know, like Bernie Sanders did. Here he's out there advocating $15 an hour, but he wasn't paying his own staff $15 an hour. And then after he got called on the carpet for it, now he's going to pay them all $15 an hour, but he's cutting their time in half. So they're not really making any more money. By the way, that'll happen to a lot of these $20 an hour on the small business level. A mom and pop owned restaurant, they can't pay people off the street $20 an hour. They can't do it. And if they have to, they won't work those people very many hours. It will limit the availability of that service that small business provides, because they're not good. I've said this before. When it comes to business, there's X number of dollars allocated for salaries, for wages, for pay. You can't, it's not going to make the pie any bigger. They're just going to cut the slices smaller. But you see, when you are in over your head, when you're actually not intellectually capable of serving in the United States Congress, which speaks for a lot of them, and on both sides of the aisle. But Rashida Tlaib has no business being in Congress. I don't know what the people in Michigan were thinking, other than the fact that there are very large now Islamic communities within the state of Michigan. In fact, Barack Obama used to kid that Michigan was the 5th largest Islamic nation in the world. And we see how well Michigan is doing right now, don't we? That all said, by the way, isn't it amazing? They come over here, they want to enact their Sharia law, and then they want to live off our system. They're draining us dry. I've talked to you before about the Trojan horses. So Rashida Tlaib, in over her head, has no real ideas or ideas that would actually work to make people's lives better. So let's just shoot from the hip and run our mouth about $20 an hour, $20 an hour. Yeah. And then you ask me why she's the twit of the week. Well, that and the fact she hangs out with AOC and Ilhan Omar, the 4 women of the apocalypse. That's it. That's my rant for today. Share this video. Give it a thumbs up. Like this video and make sure you subscribe. Smack the bell to get my next rant.